The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor, each drop like a tiny fist pounding against Marcus Chen's conscience. He sat alone in his corner office, surrounded by the trappings of success that suddenly felt as hollow as his empty stomach. The merger documents scattered across his mahogany desk blurred together as he rubbed his tired eyes. When had he last eaten a real meal? When had he last felt truly hungry for anything other than the next deal, the next acquisition, the next rung on an already impossibly high ladder? 3 floors below, Miguel Santos pushed his cleaning cart down the marble hallway, his worn sneakers squeaking softly against the polished stone. At 34, he carried the weight of 2 worlds on his shoulders: the corporate tower where he worked nights, and the small apartment where his 7-year-old daughter Emma waited for him to come home with stories and, if they were lucky, leftover pastries from the executive break room. The contrast between their lives couldn't have been starker, yet fate was about to weave their stories together in the most unexpected way. Miguel had been working at Chen Industries for 3 months, invisible to most of the executives who stayed late into the evening. He preferred it that way. Invisibility meant job security, and job security meant Emma could keep taking her art classes, meant the rent got paid, meant there was food on their small kitchen table. He'd learned long ago that dreams were luxuries he couldn't afford, not since Maria had died in that car accident 2 years ago, leaving him to navigate single parenthood with nothing but love and determination. Tonight felt different, though. As Miguel entered the executive floor, he noticed the lights still blazing in the corner office. Mr. Chen was there again, hunched over his desk like a man trying to solve the world's problems with spreadsheets and contracts. Miguel had seen him there every night this week, looking increasingly worn down, increasingly alone. The cleaning routine was familiar: empty trash bins, wipe down surfaces, vacuum carpets. But as Miguel worked, he couldn't shake the image of the CEO sitting there, surrounded by wealth yet looking so utterly depleted. It reminded him of Emma during her difficult nights, when grief would catch her unexpectedly and she'd sit at their tiny kitchen table, picking at her dinner with the weight of loss heavy on her small shoulders. That's when the idea struck him. Miguel glanced at his watch. 9:30 p.m. The office kitchenette on this floor was fully stocked but rarely used. Most executives ordered expensive takeout or ate at fancy restaurants. But Miguel had learned to work miracles with simple ingredients during those lean months after Maria's death. His grandmother's recipes, passed down through generations of Santos women, had sustained him and Emma through their darkest times. He looked toward the corner office again. Mr. Chen had rubbed his eyes and was now staring blankly at the window, his shoulders sagged in defeat. Miguel made a decision that would change both their lives. Quietly, he made his way to the kitchenette. In the refrigerator, he found eggs, some wilted vegetables that the day staff had probably planned to throw out, a few potatoes, and some cheese. Not much, but enough. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, the muscle memory of 1,000 meals prepared with love overriding any doubt about overstepping boundaries. The aroma began to fill the floor 20 minutes later. Garlic and onions sauté till the copywriting, the warm smell of cumin and paprika, the sizzle of eggs hitting a hot pan. Miguel was preparing his grandmother's tortillas tilde plus minus hola, but with his own touch as rescued vegetables given new life, cheese melted just so, seasoned with the kind of care that no restaurant could replicate. Marcus smelled it first before he heard the soft knock on his door. "Come in," he called, expecting his assistant or perhaps security. Instead, a man in a custodial uniform stood in his doorway, holding a plate covered with a kitchen towel. Miguel had never been this close to the CEO before, and he was struck by how young the man looked beneath the exhaustion, how the expensive suit couldn't hide the vulnerability in his eyes. "Mr. Chen," Miguel said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I noticed you've been here very late every night. I thought you might be hungry. Marcus blinked, too surprised to speak. In his 15 years climbing the corporate ladder, no one had ever brought him home-cooked food. Business lunches, networking dinners, catered meetings a yes. But someone noticing he looked hungry and doing something about it? Never. I'm Miguel, the man continued, setting the plate on Marcus's desk and pulling away the towel. I work the night cleaning shift. This is... well, it's just something simple, but it's warm. The tortilla was golden and perfectly shaped, cut into neat wedges. Steam rose from it, carrying with it the scent of comfort and care. Marcus's stomach responded immediately, growling audibly in the quiet office. You made this here? Marcus asked, his voice softer than usual. Miguel nodded. My grandmother's recipe. Well, adapted for what was available. I hope it's okay. I know you probably eat at much fancier places. Buta. No, Marcus interrupted, taking his first bite. The flavors hit him immediately, not just the food, but something else. Warmth, care. The taste of a meal prepared by someone who understood hunger, not just for food, but for connection. This is incredible. They stood in comfortable silence as Marcus ate, the rain continuing its rhythm against the windows. With each bite, something inside Marcus began to shift. When had he last tasted food made with this kind of intention? When had someone last noticed that he might need something and simply provided it, expecting nothing in return? You have a family? Marcus asked, surprising himself with the personal question. Miguel's face lit up. A daughter, Emma. She's 7. He pulled out his phone, showing Marcus a photo of a little girl with pigtails and paint-stained fingers, grinning as she held up a colorful drawing. She's an artist. She's beautiful, Marcus said, and meant it. It must be hard, working nights and raising her alone. We manage, Miguel said simply. She's everything to me. Her mother. We lost her 2 years ago. Since then, it's just been Emma and me against the world. The words hung between them, heavy with truth and resilience. Marcus thought of his own life here, the empty penthouse apartment, the silence that greeted him every evening, the success that suddenly felt meaningless in the face of this man's quiet strength. I'm sorry for your loss, Marcus said. She's lucky to have you. Miguel smiled, the kind of smile that comes from deep places of love and sacrifice. I'm the lucky one. She reminds me every day what really matters. Over the following weeks, something extraordinary happened. Miguel continued his cleaning duties, but now there was an unspoken understanding between him and Marcus. Some nights, if the CEO was still working late, Miguel would prepare something simple in the kitchenette: a soup from leftover vegetables, a sandwich made with care, sometimes just a perfectly brewed cup of coffee. They began to talk. Marcus learned about Emma's dreams of becoming an artist, about Miguel's own abandoned plans to become a teacher before life required different choices. Miguel learned about Marcus's journey from a working-class family to the corporate heights, about the loneliness that success sometimes brings, about parents who had sacrificed everything so their son could have opportunities they'd never had. One evening, Miguel brought his laptop to work. During his break, he showed Marcus some of Emma's digital artwork, sophisticated pieces that belied her young age. Marcus was amazed by the talent he saw, but more than that, he was moved by Miguel's pride in his daughter's abilities. She wants to take advanced art classes, Miguel said quietly. But they're expensive, and with my schedule. He trailed off, not wanting to sound like he was asking for anything. Marcus stared at the artwork on the screen. Here was raw talent, nurtured by a father's love but constrained by circumstances. It sparked something in him, a memory of his own parents working double shifts to pay for his college, their belief in his potential unwavering even when their bank account was empty. That night, Marcus made a decision that surprised even him. The next morning, Marcus called his assistant. "I want to establish an employee education fund," he said, "for the children of our staff. Full scholarships for any educational opportunity that will help them pursue their dreams." But that was just the beginning. As weeks passed, Marcus found himself looking forward to his conversations with Miguel more than any board meeting or client dinner. He began staying late not because work demanded it, but because those moments of genuine connection had become the highlight of his days. Miguel, meanwhile, noticed changes in the CEO. The man who had once seemed so isolated and driven began smiling more, asking about the other cleaning staff by name, even instituting small changes that made working conditions better for everyone. Improved break rooms, flexible scheduling for parents, healthcare benefits that actually covered families completely. The transformation culminated on a Thursday evening in November. Marcus had been working on a particularly difficult acquisition, one that would bring significant profits but would also mean laying off hundreds of employees. As he sat staring at the numbers, Miguel appeared with his usual gentle knock. "You look troubled tonight," Miguel observed, setting down a cup of tea he'd prepared, a chamomile with honey. Something he'd learned helped Marcus think more clearly. Marcus looked up at this man who had somehow become his closest friend, someone who saw him not as a CEO or a deal maker, but simply as a human being who sometimes needed care. "This deal," Marcus said, gesturing to the papers. "It's worth millions, but it means a lot of people will lose their jobs." "Good people? Probably people with families like yours." Miguel sat down across from him, something he'd never done before but which felt natural now. "What does your heart tell you?" It was such a simple question, but it cut through all the complexity, all the justifications and business logic. Marcus realized he'd been making decisions with his head and his ambition for so long that he'd forgotten to listen to his heart. "My heart tells me that no amount of money is worth destroying lives," Marcus said quietly. "Then you have your answer." The next morning, Marcus announced to his board that Chen Industries would be restructuring the deal to preserve jobs, even if it meant smaller profits. It was a decision that raised eyebrows and concerned shareholders, but it was also the beginning of a new approach to business, one that considered human cost alongside financial gain. But Marcus wasn't finished. That same week, he called Miguel into his office during the day. Emma was with him. It was a teacher workday, and Miguel had no other childcare option. She sat quietly in the corner, drawing in a sketchbook while her father worried about potential trouble. "Emma," Marcus said, kneeling down to her level, "I've seen some of your artwork. It's extraordinary." She beamed at him with the unself-conscious joy that only children possess. "Thank you. Papa shows me how to see beauty in everything. Even when things are hard, there's always something beautiful to draw." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Here was wisdom from a 7-year-old who had faced loss but chose to see beauty. It was a lesson he desperately needed. "Emma, how would you like to attend the best art school in the city? Full scholarship, all supplies included, transportation arranged." Her eyes went wide, then she looked at her father with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Miguel's own eyes filled with tears as he knelt beside his daughter. "What do you think, Major?" "It's up to you." "Can I still draw pictures for you, Papa?" "Always," Miguel whispered, pulling her close. But Marcus had one more surprise. "Miguel, I've been thinking about your background in education. We're launching a new community outreach program, and I need someone to head it up. Someone who understands what it means to struggle, to hope, to believe in potential even when resources are scarce. The position comes with a significant salary increase, day hours, and the chance to help other families like yours." Miguel stared at him, speechless. The opportunity was everything he'd dreamed of but had given up helping for. "Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Marcus replied with a smile. "And please, call me Marcus. I think we're long past formalities." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the company's new community center, watching Miguel lead a group of parents through an educational planning session. On the walls hung artwork from local children, including several pieces by Emma, who had blossomed in her new art program. The center was Marcus's pride and joy, a place where the company's success was measured not just in profits but in lives changed, dreams supported, futures made brighter. It had been Miguel's idea to include a community kitchen, where families could gather for meals and cooking classes, where the simple act of sharing food could build connections and hope. As Marcus watched Miguel work with the families, he marveled at the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple act of kindness, a meal prepared by someone who noticed another person's hunger and chose to do something about it. That single gesture had rippled outward, changing not just their own lives but the lives of countless others. Emma appeared at his side, paint on her fingers as always, holding up her latest creation, a portrait of her father and Marcus working side by side, surrounded by families and children, all of them smiling. "It's beautiful, Emma," Marcus said, accepting the drawing with reverence. "It's our family," she said simply, then skipped off to show her artwork to other visitors. "Our family." Marcus looked around the room at Miguel, Emma, and all the other people whose lives had been touched by the ripple effects of one man's compassion. He thought of his empty penthouse, which he'd since traded for a modest apartment closer to the community center, closer to the work that now gave his life meaning. He had learned that true success wasn't measured in stock prices or corner offices, but in the connections we make, the lives we touch, the love we share. A single dad had been hired to clean up, but what he'd cooked with simple ingredients, seasoned with care and served with love, had nourished something much deeper than hunger. It had fed the soul of a man who had forgotten what really mattered, and in doing so, it had changed not just one life, but an entire community. Sometimes the most profound transformations begin with the smallest acts of human kindness, prepared with love and served without expectation of return. In the end, Miguel hadn't just cleaned the office floor, so he had swept away the barriers between people, creating space for compassion, connection, and the kind of success that truly matters, a life lived in service to others, seasoned with love, and shared with family.